GeoLocation API. In this session, we are going to see what is GeoLocation API and how it works. We are going to see what is the practical usage of callback functions and promise in JavaScript. As part of this session, we are going to create an application called Find My Location to get the current location details of the user. So we'll be creating an application that you are seeing on my screen. When you click on the Find My Location, you will be asked to provide the permission. When you click on the Allow, we are going to populate details like city, state, postal code, country and flag of the country code. So we are going to have the dark mode and light mode in our application. And when you click on the dark mode, we are going to show the details in dark mode. And when you click on the light mode, we are going to show them in light mode. So let's start. So I have the folder called Find My Location on my desktop. Hold Shift key, right click, open command window here. And I am going to open the Visual Studio Code instance from the folder. Now we have the Visual Studio Code up, and now let us create the three required files that are index.html, app.js, and we require CSS file for styling, so style.css. And go to index.html and use the embed feature and let us create the HTML skeleton or boilerplate code. Please refer my suggested video to know how to write HTML and CSS code faster using embed. Let us refer the CSS file first. So link href style.css, and then let us refer the script file src equal to app.js, and I am going to use the defer keyword. When you use the defer keyword, the execution of the JavaScript file will wait until the HTML loaded. Let us create the wrapper element container, and inside that I am going to create a button with class button, and name will be Find My Location. Let us run it. Right click, open with live server. So now we have the page with Find My Location button. Now let us go to app.js. So what is GeoLocation API? GeoLocation API let us allow to track the current location. Let us see the signature of the geolocation. So GeoLocation API is part of navigator object. So navigator.geolocation dot, and it is going to have the two methods, get current position and watch position, and in this session we are going to use the get current position. So get current position, and this get current position will be having the three parameters. The first one is successful callback function, and the second one is error callback function, and we can provide the options too. And so let us create the successful callback function and then failure callback function. So when get current position call is successful, we are going to get the data. So data, and if it is fail, we get the error. So let us console both the data and error. Console.log. So now let us save it, and there you go. Now we got the prompt to provide the access to the GeoLocation API to access our location. And if you click on the block, we are going to get the error. So press F12, click on the block, and there you go. Now we got the error, geolocation position error, and the message is user denied geolocation. Let us rerun it, and if you save it, it won't ask again because so the browser already saved our choice. Click on this location symbol and click on the manage. We can see that not allowed to see your location, and just delete it and close this and save it again. And this time if you click on the allow, so in the coordinates we got some properties, and we have accuracy, heading. So but in this session we are interested in these two properties, latitude and longitude. So we are going to use these two properties and get our current location. Now let us see the practical usage of callback functions. And here we are just calling the geolocation on our page load, but instead of that we should call it when you click on the Find My Location button. And for that let us access the button. So constant button document.query selector and class name button, and after that let us add event listener. If you are not aware of add event listener, please watch my suggested video. Click, and it is going to take the arrow function. Now let us create a function called get current position. So constant get current position, and just take this entire code and keep it inside this. Call this get current position on the click of button. So just take this. So just click on the Find My Location. Now you can see that you are getting the coordinates here. So now after getting the latitude and longitude values, we need to make the API call to get the location details. So before that, we need to get these two values inside the callback function of add event listener. So let latitude equal to something 0 default values. Here just we can assign lat equal to, so data dot coords dot latitude, and the same way we can define longitude also, and instead of latitude we have to use longitude. So when you click on the button, we are going to call this function and we are assigning these values to the lat and longitude, and here we need those details. So let us display it console.log. So just click on the find my location, you got the 00 values, but the actual values will be different, right? So console.log. So now just click on the find my location. Now you can see that 00, and after this geolocation, because the get current position will execute asynchronously and we are not getting the values immediately after we calling this get current position function. So that's the reason we can use the callback functions and get the data inside the callback function of add event listener. Instead of these values, just to remove them, we don't require. Here also we don't require. Instead of calling this get current position like this, we are going to make this get current position to receive two callback functions, success callback and same way error callback. So now just remove these two callback functions from here and just pass success callback function and error callback function. Now this get current position is expecting two arguments, that are successful callback and error callback. So now what we can do, here we need to define the callback function. This is for successful and the second one is for error, and remove these two consoles. So here we are going to say data, because we are going to receive the data from the successful callback, and here we are going to receive error. Console.log data. Save it, click on the find my location button. Now we got the latitude and longitude. Now from the successful callback function, we can make the call to third party API to get the location details. So still it is not best practice, because we are nesting the functions. Like already we are having the add event listener, inside that we are calling get current position, and again we are going to have the call to third party API to get the location details, and after that again we need to have one more call to get the flag. So this is not the good way of doing. So instead of the callback functions, here we can make use of promise. So now let us use the promise and see how cool it is compared to callback functions. So I am going to create the promise, return new promise. If you are not aware of the promise, please watch my suggested video. So the promise constructor will have the executor function and get called whenever we create the new object. So it's going to take two parameters, that are resolve and reject. So just define resolve and reject, and inside that let's take this entire thing code and keep it here. So just to remove these two and just define again callback functions here like we did it last time. It's going to take error, and here we are going to get the data. Whenever it is successful, we are going to resolve it. So resolve data, and whenever it is fail, we are going to resolve the error, reject. This is very simple. We just created the promise here, and whenever the get current position call is successful, then we just resolving, and otherwise we are just rejecting. Remove this entire code, and we are going to call the get current position, and that will return the promise. So and then we need to access that data. Whenever it is successful, we are going to get the data, otherwise we can just have the catch and we are going to get the error here. And let us print the data here, console.data. Click on find my location, there you go. So we got the data now. So now we did it using the promise, and now we don't need to save these any variables outside, or we don't need to have the callback functions, anything. We don't require these two, just to remove them. And now let us create the one object called data object equal to, and just I am going to mention the empty object. Let's come here and just destructure the latitude and longitude values. So its name is latitude and longitude equal to data.coords. Click on that. This is because this spelling is wrong here. Now we got the two values. So if you think these names are too long, then we can just use the alias names for them. So if you are new to destructuring, please watch my suggested video. And now we can just mention lat and long. So we get the data here. So now we are going to make a call to another API open the browser and check for the GitHub public APIs and open it. Search for the geocode. Control F, geocode. So here we have the geocode.xyz. Just click on it. So this is the URL geocode.xyz/API, and we need to use this method like geocode.xyz and then geoit.xml. Instead of XML, we are going to pass the JSON, and to use this we need to have the authentication key. So if you go and use it, when you run it, we are going to get the error because we need the authentication key. And to get the authentication key, click on the get an API key. We just need to sign up to this website and then we get the authentication key, and it is very simple. Like, you just give the email address and type again and password, and now click on the create account. But you are going to get the authentication key and that will be displayed here. So let me just log in and show you. So I have the authentication key here, so I can use this authentication key and make the API call. And now so after the JSON, just use the ampersand symbol and then AUTH authentication equal to and the key we need to use, and the key will be displayed here once you sign up, and you will have the sample URL also. Okay, so I think this is cool. So now let us write the another function to get the location details. So constant get location details, and this is going to receive the two parameters, that is latitude and longitude. And here let us create the URL. Let URL equal to, so let us take this URL and just use the dollar, and instead of that just use latitude, and the same way after comma just remove this and use like this. As I said, we need to provide the authentication key, and let us make the fetch call. So constant response equal to, if you are not aware of the await, please watch my suggested video, and I'm going to use the fetch API and then URL, and now just return response.json. So this get current location details function going to return the promise, because this response.json will return the promise value. So now what we can do, just call this get location details and just pass latitude and longitude, and we know that this is going to return the promise, so just return it. So here I am returning this get current location details because instead of consuming it here using the then function, we can consuming it outside. So we can just chaining the promises, otherwise it will lead to the callback hell. So we are going to have the nested functions, and that is not good. So just return it. So since we are returning the promise from this then method, we can consume it outside. So then, and again we are going to get the data, and if there is any error, and inside then we are going to get the data. Just console it, console.log data. So now let us run it and see what will be the output. So here we got the error. So we can see that uncaught syntax error, await is only valid inside the async functions. We need to use the async keyword here. So since this is arrow function, we can use it here, async. And now let us save it. Now there is no error, and this is one of the interview question too. Now click on the find my location. There you go. Now we can see that we have the response, and in the response we have the city and country name, state address, state and address, postal code, everything we have, right? But let us grab the city, state, country code and postal code values. What you can do, we can just use this data and do the destructuring. Constant name is postal equal to data, and after that I am going to assign all these four values to the data object. So remember, we defined the data object. So data object equal to, just assign these properties and then just console our data object. Now click on the find my location. We are gonna get the details like city, country, postal and state. So now we got these details, and after getting this we need to get the flag. So for that we can use another API called REST countries API. We can get it and just search for REST countries. So REST space countries, click on this, and we have some of the API endpoints. So here we have the endpoint, and this will take the name property. So we are going to pass the country name to this endpoint. So we don't require this, and even this, just again minimize it. And now what we are going to do, we are going to write another function called constant get country data, receive the country name, so country, and after that let us form the URL. Let us URL equal to, and use the backticks again, and instead of name just we need to mention the country, so use the dollar symbol. Same way, just take this. So now just make the get country data call, get country data, and pass the country. So we have the country value here, just we can pass it. So as we did in case of get location details, we just return it again. So return it, we are going to consuming it here then, and we are going to get the data again, and if there is an error we are going to get the error too. Console.log, and as I said again we need to use the async keyword .log data. So now we are printing this data object, and then we are printing this country data. Click on the find my location button. There you go. So now we have the city Bangalore, India, and then we got the country data, and it is array of data. So we got single item. So inside that we have the object called flags. So we are interested in this because we require this flag. So here we are going to take the flags. So flags, we have the data, and it is having the array of data, right? So of 0. So now what we can do, we can use the object.assign syntax, and then here we can do data object is the target object. So I'm going to define one property called flag. So here we can take either PNG or SVG. So I would like to take the PNG here. So flags.png, and what this object.assign method will do, it will copy this flag property to the data object. So to know more about object.assign, please refer my suggested video. Just console.log data object, and we are going to get all the data that we require to render. Click on find my location. Now we got the data that we required. So we can see that we have the city, country, flag, postal code, and state. So these are the data we required, and we got that final data. So let us have a small recap of what we did. So we just listening to the click event of button using the add event listener, and inside that callback function of add event listener, and we are calling the get current position, and this get current position will get called this get current position method, and inside that we just created a promise, and inside that promise we just call the GeoLocation API's get current position method, and this will have the successful callback and failure callback, and whenever it is successful we just resolving the promise, and once we resolve the promise we are going to get the data inside this then method, because we are consuming it here. So once we consuming it, we are getting the data coordinates, and we required latitude and longitude, and after that we defined one method called get location details, and this get location details will accept the latitude and longitude, and it will make a call to geocode.xyz API endpoint, and it will give us the location details like city, state, country, postal code, and using the country code we define the get country data function, and using the country code we are going to get the flag of that we are doing here, get country data, and we are passing the country, and once we got the country data, and we just formed our final object, and now we have the entire data that we required inside this data object. Now let us create the markup so that our page will be looking like the page that we are seeing on the screen. index.html. So here I am going to create a div with class details, and inside that we are going to have the 5 divs with class item, and let's enter. So now we got the each item, and let us have the text here, city Bengaluru. I just pause it and write the code, and let us reuse this code. At last we are going to have the image instead of the span. So just remove this and just have the image tag. So now you can see that if you load the application we have this kind of markup. Let us define the box sizing for all the elements. So box sizing, border box, and this is very important to handle the paddings and margins, and then just define HTML and body, just apply height 100%, center this content. To center this content I am going to use the display flex, so df display flex, and flex direction will be column, and then we need to have the justify content center, and the same way align items center, and just save it. Now you can see that our content is placed in center. And also let us apply some background color. So background, so for the background color we are going to use the linear gradient value. So go to the browser, and once you search for the CSS gradient, you get the CSS gradient generator maker, and just click on it, and here you can just change the values. So sliders you can use, and you can change the values, and you can get the desired value whatever you want. So once you use the sliders and get the desired output, then you can go and here and you can take this entire value and you can use it. So I am already having that value handy, so just use it. But we don't have any color to this container, right? Container, and let us define some padding 20 pixel, and I am going to give some width 80%. Save it. And then what we need to do, we need to define the class details class. So we have the details class here, details -fff. So this is the light color. Let us give some padding 0.8 rem. If you observe, this find the location button and this detail section are very close, so let us give some margin top. So empty, let's say 20 pixel. Let us apply the CSS class for button, and here I am going to say background -fff. So border radius is 2 pixel, padding and border 1 pixel, solid, transparent, and now we have the button like this. And we need to apply the font size also. So font size and cursor pointer, and also give the border color. Let us define the item CSS class. So each of these city, state, postal is everything is one item. Let us define the item, and let us give padding, and let us give some border bottom 1 pixel, solid as CCC. And we can see that the border is applied for all the elements, and also for the last element we don't want to have the border, so we can just remove that using item last child border none. So the border is gone now. And we need to define one more button called dark button. So go to index.html. So let us add a row. So row, it's CSS class I'm using, and this one. And after that let us give another button, and I mean say toggle class I will add for that. And find my location, instead of that just say dark, and you can see that dark button is there. Now take this row and just refine it, row df display flex, and just by content it should be space between, so the dark button will be placed at the right side. And now what else, we need to just define the dark. So dark, and just define background, and then border 1 pixel, solid, and let us take this dark color and apply to this, and just define the font color also. So now we have the default font here, so let us apply the Google font. And for that, search for the Google fonts, then click on the Google fonts and search for Rubik, and click on it, and we can take anything that we like. So I copy this style, and here once you click on the select the style, you just select these two links and use them in the index.html. So before this just use it, and also take this font family and use it at the application level. So HTML and body, here you can use it. And the same way for the button you have to explicitly mention for the button. And now let's go and see our output. Now you can see that new font style is applied, and this is very cool. So now we should have some gap between the city and value of the city, and for that we have already defined the class PL10, which stands for padding left 10. So just define here PL10 pixel, and now we got the required space also. If you compare our application with the actual application, you can see the changes, like the find my location button and dark, this entire content is placed at the top level, but we have placed at the center of the screen. Okay, and we don't have image button yet. Once you got the image button, our application will look like the same. So to place the content at the top level, for justify content we need to change the value from center to flex start. So flex start. So now we can see that content is placed at the top level. So you can see this is responsive too. So because we mentioned the width in percentage, we can see as soon as we just resize the window, we can see the content also getting resized. So now we are done with the HTML and CSS coding part, except for image and some other changes. So now we got all the data that is required to run on the screen. So we have that data in the data object. So now I am going to write a function called render location details, and this is going to accept the data, and inside that I am going to create the HTML string. So let HTML str equal to, and use the backticks, and here just cut this entire detail section, use it here. We have the data, and we know that in the data object we have the city, state, postal, country, all the values. So instead of hard coding, just now data dot city, or even we can just destructure it, city, state, postal, country, flag equal to data. So now we did the destructuring. So take this city now, instead of data dot city we can just use like this, state, and this should be flag. Now we need to add this HTML string to the container element, and for that we can use the method called insert adjacent HTML method. And if you don't know about it, please refer my suggested video. It is having so many benefits over inner HTML method. So document dot query selector, and let us use the container class dot insert adjacent HTML, and it is going to take 4 values, and we are going to give the value before end, and then we just refer HTML string. Now let us call this function and just assign this one constant, and here render location details and pass the data object. So now we are done with the render location detail function. So now let's click on the find my location button. There you go. Now we got the data. So we got city, state, postal and country, and but now image is going outside of this detail section because we haven't written the CSS for that. So go to style.css. So just write image width 90% and height 80%, save it. There you go. So when you use the percentage for width and height for image, then you can see that image also getting resizable when you resize the window. And if you don't want that behavior, then you can use the fixed measurement, like you can use the pixel. Now let us work on the toggling between the dark mode and light mode. So I just added the 3 CSS classes, button dark, hide and show, and by default we are going to hide this dark button because it doesn't make sense to have that button when you don't have any data. Just apply that CSS class here, so it is going to be hidden. Now go to style.css. So take this dark CSS class from here, keep it before this button dark so that all related CSS classes will be one place. Go to the app.js. So in app.js I just defined the light mode variable with value true. By default we are going to have the light mode, and also I am accessing this dark button using the toggle CSS class, and here we need to listen to this button toggle click event. So button toggle dot add event listener and click. So inside the click event callback function of button toggle, we are going to have the code like this. So in the first line we are accessing the detail section. So this is the detail section, and then we are just toggling the value of light mode. If light mode is true, then we are just removing the dark CSS class from the detail section if it is already there. Otherwise what we are doing, we are just adding the dark mode. And the same way, if it is light mode, for the button toggle we are just adding the button dark CSS class so that the color of the button will be changed. And otherwise we are just removing it. And after that we are just changing the name of the button toggle. If it is light mode, we are just making it dark, otherwise light. Click on this find location button. We got the data, but still we don't have this button appearing. For that we need to add the show CSS class to the button in the render local details function. So let us write another function, constant reset. So inside the reset function, I am just accessing this detail section first, and then what I am doing, I am just removing the hide CSS class and then adding the show CSS class, because we need to show it whenever we have the data. And then we are just adding the button dark CSS class to the button, and then if details are there, means if the details are found, then what we are doing, we are just removing it. So means if you are already having this section, just we are removing it, and also changing the text of this button to the dark. And this is the reset function, and this should be called each time we click on the find my location button. Add this is class before we are adding the content. So here we don't require now this one, remove it and just add reset. Now click on the find my location. If you click on the dark mode, you can see that the background and text color changed, and if you click on the light mode, then light mode will be back again. It is changing the color and background color, but it is not very smooth. For that we just add the transition for this background. So go to the detail CSS class and just add a transition here, transition, and let's say all 0.5 second, ease in out. Click on light mode and dark mode. You can see that animation, you can see it is just flickering, because when you are having the dark mode, we are having the border, but for light mode we don't have border. So go to the dark mode and remove the border. So just remove this border, save it, and now click on the dark mode and light mode, and now you can see the transition effect very smoothly, right? So this way we can implement the dark mode and light mode. If you like my explanation, please click the like button, and also please provide the comments. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.